How's it going, everybody? It's Pilot Flame. We're back. I know this patch note video is late. It came out, patch would have been out early Tuesday, sometime like that. But let's get straight into it. 10.5 notes. Here are the buffs and nerfs. We'll check the skins at the very end, like we usually do. But it says Alistair, Graves, Kaisa, Kane, Lissandra, Nico, Sivir, Sona are buffed. Nerfed, Amumu, Bard, Blitzcrank, Ornn, Rammus, and Set are the champions being nerfed. So Alistair buffs. They're buffing his base HP by 25, and they're making it so that you can consume or gain Triumph stacks even after it hasn't been procced yet. So good change for Alistair. It's not going to really change too much at all. Amumu, they nerfed his cooldown on his ult by 20. 10 and 0 seconds, so basically just nerfing the early ranks. Not sure if that's just targeted lower elo. We're talking silver, bronze, iron, gold even, because the Moon obviously is very good because people don't know how to spread out or fan out in fights like that, so potentially something there for that, but competitive play still won't see him, unfortunately, even though he did get some nice changes recently. Bard, additional damage per 5 chimes is down by 3. At the grand scheme of things, it's not going to change too much. Bard is still a very good support when he's played well. Unfortunately, you need to, in order to play him well, you need to be in coordinated play. And unfortunately, in solo queue, that means he's not very good, especially when you use his ult ineffectively. Blitzcrank, small nerf to barely hit her triggers, 3 armor off his base. Doesn't really change too much. I guess that's a lower elo hit as well. Graves, now this is an interesting one. So magic is up by 2. His magic resist growth up by 0.25. So he gains, I think it's like 4 to 6 MR by level 18. His Q cost is now only 60 mana, and it's down by 1 second in all ranks. So there's been a new build that's being piloted with Graves, where you basically just build full lifesteal and tank stats. So you go like Fleet Footwork or Conqueror, you go Bloodline, you go Ravenous Hunter, you go Taste of Blood. You basically all the things that give you HP back, and then you build Death Stance, BT, Spirit Visage into full tank, and then you basically are just very good versus melee-oriented compositions. So it's a build to potentially look out for, and it's being played in both top and mid. So I think those are some pretty good changes towards his direction. Also, just innately just makes clearing obviously that much faster because it's 1 second faster. Kaisa, so they're changing her Q ability power ratio down by 0.125, which is not the end of the world, but they're increasing the missile, so it probably balances itself out potentially. Void Seeker from 20 to 120 to now 30 to 130, so buff on the damage there. AP ratio up by 0.1, and the AD ratio down by 0.2. And then they're making it so that it refunds 70% of its cooldown against champions. So basically this is orienting more towards AP-oriented Kaisa for the W, and a Q kind of balancing out. So they basically don't want it so where you can build AP and then your Q still does ridiculous damage as well. So they're kind of trimming some of this back and giving it to more of the Void Seeker. It's also making Kaisa a little bit better in ARAM as well, which is just a little tidbit there. But yeah, I think it's an interesting change. The AP Kaisa is... The problem with Kaisa right now is that you want to go AD or you want to go AP, and then in both cases there are AD carries that just do things better than what she does at the moment. I think LS put it perfectly, which his link is down below in the description below, or will be, along with Freak's channel for the more mathematical side of things. He put it best where he said that basically people are changing the AD carries that they pick because they're getting bored because of Felios and MF. And champions like this, they're very kind of straightforward in a sense to play at like any decent level, because they just Aphelios, you kind of just get the 2 right weapons and then you just throw your ult at them, and MF you just get your ult and you use it with Make It Rain, and that's pretty much about it. And then people feel like Kaisa's more involved. She's more weaving auto attacks in. She's dipping in and out of fights with her ult. So yeah, Kaisa right now, like if you wanted to go AD Kaisa, MF's probably going to provide more. If you're going an AP oriented Kaisa, probably Aphelios does better than what she does. Or even if you wanted to go AP Varus, could also be something that you could potentially play in the mid lane, which is better. Even AP in the bot lane where you have Nashor's Tooth, Rage Blade, all that sort of stuff, it's probably better as well. Kane, so they increased his orb rate, so now instead of from increased at 8 and 12 minutes, it increases constantly every second after 5 minutes, flattening out at 13 minutes. So will this change Kane too much? Not too much. And then slow on his W is 70% versus 60%. Again, not going to make Kane competitively viable unless this increased rate makes it so that he can get Rost at like 7 minutes or something stupid when just ganking normally. Lissandra, increase in ability power ratio on a Q. At the end of the day, this is probably going to add maybe 100 damage in a long extended team fight in very, very late game. Maybe 200 at most, but it's not going to... Lissandra doesn't typically build that much AP anyway. She goes Proto Belt, she goes Zonia's, stuff like that. Because she wants to be a bit more survivable because she's getting in there. She's melee in a sense. So probably not going to change too much there. The Nico changes are interesting. So attack speed growth slightly up. A little bit more AP on the E, which is something that she spams a lot. And inside of a team fight, so 50 to 110, now 75 to 125, plus 0.25 ability power. So the shield's going to end up being 200-ish damage later on in the game. So this could be quite impactful, especially something that she spams as well. Also giving a little bit more attack speed means attack speed based items for like a Nico top or something like that is going to be quite good. But I think these changes favor more of a support Nico as well. It does obviously help out AP Nico, makes it a little bit more survivable in laning phase versus divers or assassins and stuff like that. But I think support Nico could potentially be something because this ratio 0.6, anything above 0.5 is always something to be wary about, especially with the AP support items and getting just, you know, a Leandries or just a Ludens or something like that. It can be quite impactful because it does amplify the damage quite a lot. So that's a pretty good change. Ornn, so he's been probably the best champion in League of Legends for quite some time now, and just people are just starting to pick him up recently. So he's seeing his nerfs. So let's see what they did. So brittle proc damage 12 to 20.5% max health is now 10 to 18%. Okay, that doesn't really change too much because Ornn already has combos where he can basically just lethal you anyway, given the right snare and given the right, you know, the right combo. Because basically, if he hits the Q, if he hits his Q on you at the perfect time, you can basically pop your ult. You can then dash in, knock the person up in the air, and then ult, apply the brittle, and then knock them up in the air again with your ult, and then apply the brittle again, which is basically overkill. And then you could W them and then chase them down, and basically 100s or anything that isn't full tank Maokai or something, you know. So they're making it so that he can only upgrade his items at level 13, and then obviously the allies is 14, 15, 16, 17. So the ones that matter is 14, 15 because that's your like your AD carry, your mid laner, and then they call probably your jungler and then your support. Your support typically didn't get an item at 16 unless your team is grossly ahead, in which case the game is over anyway. So at level 17 it doesn't really matter too much. 16 is your jungler, doesn't really matter too much because junglers kind of occupy themselves, at least the ones that everyone's picking, like Lee Sin, Elise, Olaf. They kind of run around and do the same thing pretty much no matter what it is after the 1.5, 2 items. So you're just going to be upgrading Black Cleaver. Yeah, it's a little bit of an upgrade, but it's not like upgrading a Death Cap. It's not upgrading a Trinity Force, unlike an Ezreal. It's not upgrading Zhonya's Hourglass or something that may be a better item. A Blade of the Rune King on like a Kog'Maw or Twitch or something like that. So yeah, this is definitely warranted. It's still not going to change much because if you get to these item points, you're still in the game anyway, which Ornn can reliably get to level 15 in the game unless you horribly misplay. So I think it's perfectly fine change. Ornn will still be ridiculously good. Still is going to be worthy of picking, especially in a B1 rotation. For sure, B1 being blue side first pick. But yeah, I think that's perfectly fine. Rammus, so they cut back some of the attack speed they gave him last patch. Again, that just seems to be a lower elo thing. Set, they lowered his armor by 4, they lowered his health regen, they lowered his base health regen, and they made it so the showstopper is a 1% in the impact area for the slow duration instead of 1.5 seconds, and now he gets an assist credit even when the target dies. So Set's a champion that people have been picking first rotations at B1, R1, R2, so blue first pick or red first second pick. which is not great because he does have matchups which he doesn't do very well into. So Soraka top was a thing against him that could do quite well. Some ranged champions do well against him. There are some melee matchups that he could potentially go even with, but it's something that you want to bring him in on potentially R4, R5. You potentially want to pick him in a scenario where you can potentially flex him mid if you're picking B4, B5. And it's just one of those things where he shouldn't be picked early because he does have ways you can play around him. Very, very good laning champion, very good mid-game oriented champion. It does fall off a bit, can be bursted down in post 30 minutes and whatnot, but it's just the laning phase that people seem to be I guess struggling with, I want to say, with Sep, because obviously his W, he's able to chase you down, he's able to ult you, he has very good gank assist as well. So yeah, see these changes. I think sets needed slight buffs in my opinion, but I see the way they're changing with it, and also he is a bit tough to deal with in lane, so I guess that's what they're targeting. He's still gonna have a really good mid game and stuff too, and his ult's still gonna do what it does. His W's still gonna do what it does. He's still gonna have the kit. That's pretty cool. So overall, I think it's okay. Sivir, Q damage increased for later, so it's what we have here. 35 to 115 is now 35 to 95, so shaving off 20 damage. And then it's 0.7 to 1.1 plus 0.5 to 0.7 to 1.3. So later game going to be slightly higher, I guess. So her laning phase is still going to be technically worse. And then on the hunt is 20 to 30% base movement speed. So you end up getting boots 1 out of it. So not too bad. Sona, base AD increased, armor attack damage increased in growth by 1 and 4 on the base, and then her base movement speed for herself is just going to be 20% flat. So they're basically making the changes from when they changed to make it so that they didn't want Sona in the solo lane. She's still going to be the same support in a duo lane. Can't really be played top because of the changes you'll be seeing later on. She'll actually have to farm. But yeah, overall it's not going to change the way Sona is going to be picked. Out of range cast changes. So when you try to cast something outside of max range, one of two things happen. Either you walk in a range and then cast the ability, or you will automatically cast at max range in the direction. So the abilities that they're changing is MF Make It Rain, Varus, Hail of Arrows. These two are fine because they're AoEs, whereas Syndra's Dark Sphere is a smaller AoE, but typically you want to balance that max range for it. This could make it actually more difficult in team fights, but in laning phase will be easier to hit the EQ. So I know there are times, at least I played Syndra recently, go to do the EQ combo, Q doesn't cast because it's outside of max range, go to throw the E, nothing goes. So in laning phase potentially good, but inside of team fights could potentially be a little bit more difficult. Changes to jungle champions, so hemorrhage damage to monsters increased. That's good for Darius jungle. The people have been playing him jungle and seem to be doing decently well with it. Mordekaiser, this seems to be a change. I remember something like this previously in the jungle, so he may be back to what he was before, but people didn't really pick him in the jungle then. He's more of a solo lane type champion, but could potentially see him back in the jungle, who knows. This one is actually quite interesting because Poppy jungle is something that can be picked. Very good ganks. Very good assist on ganks if played in the solo lane, whether it be mid, support, top. That's another thing that Poppy can be played in 4 roles. She can play mid, she can play top, she can play jungle, and she can play support. So max damage versus monsters increased is quite good. So that means she's going to be able to do more damage to monsters. So it makes clear a lot faster, which her clear was already pretty good as well. Turret plating. So now we're changing the way turret plates. Okay, so terrain treat is the second and third lines, even though you're dealing out the same damage as you did before. We didn't just want to say turret plates take increased damage from melee champions. Okay, so basically, it says turret plates take 17% reduced damage from ranged champions. You can basically ignore this line. You can ignore this line. These two lines just basically mean ranged champions do the same damage to turrets, basically. Gold per plate, they're making it so that you get 160 gold per plate if you are a melee champion, I want to say. So we're changing turret plates in a few ways to make it more appealing. Top lane split pushes or since plates take more damage. Most top lane rosters have an easy time downing them and easiest securing the first turret gold. As a result, increasing board means group pushes won't be as rewarding with gank bots set up for dragon. However, it adds consequences. So I'm not sure if this means that only melee champions get 160 gold, or if the turret plates literally just give 160 gold. I read it initially when I first saw the patch notes before I came on air, that it gives melees are gonna get more gold. So if it's just the case where you just get 160 gold now, okay, they just reverted it back. But they're making turrets easier to kill if you're a solo melee champion, whereas now the bulwark resist is going to be 10 seconds longer. So once you kill a plate, there's an extra 10 seconds where when you're hitting the tower, it's going to be stronger. And then so basically it's just all of these read more gold per plate. Melees do more damage to turrets, especially by themselves. Not sure if this means they get more gold if they're just by themselves. And the bulwark lasts longer. So basically, turrets will take the same damage from ranged champions, more damage from melee champions, but it's going to be harder to take down if you're just sending 4 people at a turret, basically. Unless you have Rift Herald, in which case it's probably just going to get marked anyway, so. Blade of the Ruined King. So it's an interesting change. It makes split pushes potentially, good for Alawi, good for Fiora, good for Set even potentially. Demolish becomes a bit more prevalent now, which is obviously interesting because it's being outshone by Fawn of Life, so yeah, Demolish might be quite good. Blade of the Ruined King. They basically made it so that if you're a ranged champion, it's 8%, like it was before for all users, whereas now melee champions get 12% Blade of the Ruined King. So fighter champions, potentially someone like Jax. Set maybe potentially could get this third item after Asterix. Could be more damage-oriented split push build. Could be interesting. Interesting change. Ravenous Hydra. Lifesteal increased, area of effect damage increased. Okay, so lifesteal increased by 6%. That's quite high. The active radius is up by 50. It's a decent size change. And then at your basic attack range up to 200 is the activation of the center point. So I guess like in a circle, I guess. I guess I put Sorry Rengar because it basically doesn't change for him, I guess, because he has his Q active. But yeah, I like this change. Ravenous Hydra has been quite a powerful item on certain champions. So Fiora, again, these types of split pushes, very good with Ravenous Hydra. If you go Ravenous Hydra Triforce, more damage oriented. And they've also changed Titanic Hydra here as well. So now it's 1.5% of users max health for the primary target. And then 3% of the users max health instead of 2.5 on secondary targets. So again, more HP heavy builds. We'll see a little bit more damage on that. So this is a buff to the likes of Shen, or things that are going to be building a bit more tanky that still want a bit of wave clear. Now here we go. Here's the support items. So these two items are items that were basically putting in solo lanes. So specifically Spell Thief's Edge was being picked on Sona. You just wouldn't farm. Soraka could do it top as well. And you would just get gold. You would just sit up there, get gold, and then you would scale. You would get 2 items faster than you would in support. And then you would just be annoying. Whereas now they're making it so the tribute procs now require an allied champion, even dead allied champions within 2,000 range, and affects the Frostfang line as well. And same for the sickle, Spectral Sickle and the Harren Crescent. So what does this mean? So this means that even if your laner dies, you can still hit people with poke, and you can still get the stacks, but you're still next to somebody within 2,000 range, which is a big radius. If somebody obviously respawns back at base, you don't get it like normal. Or if you're in a solo lane, you don't get anything if there's no one near you. So you can't just buy this item, sit top, getting gold with the tribute procs and not farm. Now you would just get the passive gold, which sucks. So you would have to farm, so there's no point in actually buying this in the solo lane. So Soraka was already doing it where she was just not going the support item. You could just go Doran's Ring, you farm normally with Q, you take in less farm, but your items cost less, so you basically work out the same even if you have a poor laning phase. But typically you're quite safe unless you get 3-man Dove or something like that. So I like the change. Mobility boots are now 100 gold more, so that's an extra wave for the likes of Talon, Kiana, the center junglers, as it were, coined by LS, the Lee Sins, the Elises, the Olafs potentially. extra 100 gold. Also for support, so extra wave is quite uh, quite bad for what they have to stay for, because 100 gold for a support is a decent bit. So for the likes of, let's say you're let's go back to the mid lane example. So if you're playing Kiana, if you're playing Talon as an example, 1,000 gold is closer to when a mage is going to be getting their lost chapter potentially. You know, it could be something like that. To whereas you're going back, you're buying the mobility boots, and the mage could be going back and buying the components for lost chapter, or even the full lost chapter. They're farming slightly better than you because they're probably going to be they're going to be up maybe 5-10 CS maybe. They'll be at let's say the 8-minute mark or whatever it is. We'll go hypothetically 8-minute mark. They have 70 CS, and you're at 55-60, which is their lost chapter versus your mobility boots, which is obviously a big power spike for them, not really for you. You just get the roaming of power. Boots of Swiftness, so now it's up to 60. I could have sworn it was at 60 before, but maybe it wasn't. Anyway, it's always good to see the Swifty boots. I think Swifty boots are quite good in certain scenarios. ARAM balance changes, doesn't really matter too much there. Eternals, something about blue essence. And then some bug fixes here. So Slice and Dice no longer plays its on-hit auto if it doesn't hit anything. Okay. No longer swaps item slots when it becomes a replica. That would be quite annoying. Tom Kench, Rakan, Death Dance, last tick. Restore damage now properly kills the target instead of leaving them 1 HP. That would have been quite useful, actually. All of these seem quite fine. Property stuns target as intended, so some quite a little bug there. Now let's go on to so we're going to do these both because this is Alistair and Renekton. This kind of looks like just a Nivea with a blade, in a sense, because of the Black Frost like head. And then Alistair is pretty cool. Like, I can tell it's Alistair, but this could also easily be technically Malphite if you made his neck not as long and put it around here and made his shoulder slightly bigger, I guess. So, and could also be a completely different champion too, so that's something to take into consideration. Black Frost Rek'Sai. The only reason I can really tell that it's Rek'Sai is because one, it's set on the image, and two, there's another Rek'Sai looking champion right here. But again, the Black Frost scheme kind of looks like a Nivea in a sense, but it still looks pretty cool. Then Hextech Sejuani. This reminds me of something like coming out of like Stormwind or something like that. Like you're walking out the gates of Stormwind from WoW. I think it's a pretty cool looking skin. Not too bad, not too bad. And here are the chromas for them, which color looks pretty cool. I like this one here. That one looks pretty cool too. What about the Alistair? Alistair, they're all about the same for me. And then for the Renekton, I think this one looks pretty cool too. These three here look pretty cool. So that's all the skins there. So if we go back up to the top, we're going to run through everything very quickly again. So in the grand scheme of things, so I'm going to do competitive and solo queue. Obviously mine take more of mine on the solo queue take rather than the competitive side of things. You can go towards LS channel and the more mathematical side of things. There wasn't very complex math involved here. Maybe he has something on Sivir because he is an 80 carry main. But overall, solo queue, competitive for Alistair, gonna be a nice change. Not gonna see much increased play in Alistair. Will affect lower elo for Amumu, but not gonna see much change overall. Not gonna see much change overall for Bard. Won't affect Blitzcrank because Blitzcrank's gonna do what Blitzcrank still does. May see higher MMRs playing Graves, especially in solo lanes. Kai'Sa, more AP oriented build, now slightly favored. But again, won't change too much. People who want to play Kai'Sa will play Kai'Sa. In competitive, they should be picking, Aphelios and MF basically over everything. Kayn shouldn't change too much in either. Lissandra shouldn't change too much in either. Obviously favor slightly heavier AP builds, but you typically don't want to go that because you're more disrupt there. Potentially see Nico support. I'm going to potentially try this as well. Nico support, you can potentially go like an Ashes 2 Zonias or something like that along with your support item instead of like a Leandri's AP one-shot build because you can go with the attack speed growth. It's quite interesting. Ornn doesn't change too much. He still has lethal, even with his brittle damage if you know the combo, and won't affect too much because you can always reliably get to level 15, level 16. Won't change too much on Rammus. Once Rammus taunts you and lure you, and if you don't have a QSS later on, you're dead anyway. Set won't change too much. He's still going to lane quite well. Sivir later on in team fights and coordinated play will probably see a little bit better, but our laning phase is still too weak right now and her range is too short. She'll get pushed out of lane. Sona won't change too much at all. These two changes are fine. The Syndra change could be, like I said, problematic inside of team fights, but potentially better inside of laning phase. May see more Darius jungle, may see more Mordekaiser jungle. Probably top 3 change in the patch is this for Poppy, because Poppy jungle is quite good, and she can be flex 4 roles, especially in coordinated play. This change is probably the one of the top 3 changes as well, alongside the Poppy change. So melee split pushes may become more prominent. You can't just send 4 people without taking an extra 10 seconds of resists on the turret, because it's 35 to 45 seconds. Blade of the Rune King is a decent change. Probably won't see it as much as maybe the Hydra changes. These two are quite important as well, I think, especially the 6% lifesteal. Lifesteal is not to be underestimated, especially with the likes of split pushers. And then obviously probably the last major change is probably the Spell Thief's Edge and Spectral Sickle not being allowed to be. Basically, you have to play them in a dual lane only. And then probably an honorable mention is the mobility boots with the increased 100 gold, which will definitely affect competitive play. It'll affect roamers that play like Talon and Kiana and stuff like that. Swifty boots are fine. And then a bunch of bug fixes, and then a bunch of new skins. So yeah, let's do a little bit of ranking. So if I had to rank probably the most significant changes, I would say probably 3rd place. Just scrolling through here quickly. I think probably the third change is probably the Hydra changes. Probably slightly pretty good. 2nd place is probably the Poppy, because she's not going to be picked more inside the jungle, even though she could order to do so already. And then probably number 1 is the top lane, or the plate changes on that, with probably an honorable mention to Ornn, even though Ornn's still going to be picked, and Nico. So yeah, that's going to do it for this patch note video. Hope you guys all enjoyed it. I apologize again for it being a bit late, and we'll put the video up as soon as we can on the channel. So make sure to give us a follow, PilotFlame226 on all platforms, and Twitch, Twitter, and YouTube. YouTube doesn't actually have a name yet. You need a certain amount of subscribers for that, but overall, it should be okay if you just search PilotFlame226 League of Legends or PilotFlame226 Final Fantasy 14, something like that. You'll be able to find us, and all the descriptions are down below. Make sure to give us a follow, make sure to subscribe on the YouTube channel, and we'll see you in the next one. Take care.